we're going to be looking at 3 simple ways to love everyone, and that involves a different way of thinking about people. But why think about people differently? We already think about people, right? We already know a lot of people. We already engage with them in a lot of ways. Why would we want to change or attempt to change any of our programming around people? Well, so I think to explain that, we're going to use the parable of the smartphone. So pretend that, let's say Matt, who does the graphics on our show, let's say that he bought himself a new smartphone, but it wasn't hooked into the network. So he was here, but he couldn't make any calls, it couldn't get on the internet. It's just a machine out of the box. It can still do some cool things. I mean, you can have a calculator. If you got a big math problem that you need to solve, there it is, right? Or let's say you want to fill up your calendar. There's an itinerary there. Oh, no events on there. That'll fill up, I'm sure. But you can do a few things. You can use it as like a flashlight. But if you use it the way it was designed and you hook it up to the network, suddenly you have everything the human race has in the palm of your hand. You can communicate with your friends. You can learn not only current news, but everything. You can listen to Weezer, not their best album. You can watch our show, which is the pinnacle of technology. You are suddenly connected to everything that the human race has put out. Your little phone talks to these satellites up above this stratosphere. I don't know anything about space. And they talk back to you, and that can hook you up with your real-life friends. You can actually meet up, and just so happens his friends are other people who work on the show. We're a tight-knit group. Break that fourth wall already. So that's how if you use a smartphone. But what if we were to use our minds in the way that they were designed? And that's what we're going to look at today. Is there a major upgrade, a major mental upgrade that we could make? And we're going to attack this premise by the idea that our minds have a design as well that we can work into. And this idea came out of Swedenborg, as does everything that drives our weird trajectory on this show. And he, at one point, just lays out the design of the divine design, he calls it, that we're meant to follow with our minds. So if we follow this, could we similarly plug in? Not that we'll suddenly have these super abilities to know everything, but the abilities come in terms of happiness and enabling us to relate well to people and find kindness in situations where we usually couldn't find it. So can we do that? This is going to start at 100 miles an hour. This is like a typically relatively confusing Swedenborg quote, but here he lays out 5 points about the divine design. So this is the way we're supposed to be using the mind. Okay, so this is from his book, True Christianity, number 71.
1. God is the divine design itself. 2. He created humankind on the basis of his design and in keeping with it, and built that design into us. 3. He created our rational minds in imitation of the divine design in the whole spiritual world, and our bodies in imitation of the divine design in the whole physical world. This is why the ancients called a person both a heaven in miniature and a world in miniature. 4. As a result, it is a law of the divine design that we are to rule our microcosm, or physical world in miniature, from our micro-heaven, or spiritual world in miniature, just as God rules everything about the macrocosm or physical world from his macro-heaven or spiritual world.
Nothing to it, right? Are we there? Okay. To recap that, we can live in the divine design by making the psychological, emotional, like the spiritual part of us an image of heaven, while the outer part of us is an image of the world. That's what he says anyway. And we can't really change the outer part of us that much. I mean, trust me, I've been trying to exercise. It's not that easy. But you can change the thoughts and feelings, or the patterns of those. That's the idea that he's putting out there. So what we need to do, all we got to do, is make our minds like heaven. And then this whole thing works out. So we're going to spend the rest of this show trying to untangle what that could look like. And who's to say what heaven is or what it isn't? Well, it's Swedenborg. I mean, this show is Swedenborg in life. So let's look a little bit at what he says the mindset of heaven is as regards specifically to people. And if we can get there, start to practice this, we can plug into this design better. And then from there, hopefully, reap all these benefits. And I say this because we do already run a default program on how we think about people, but it's not often very high quality. For example, there's different ways we think about people when we're kind of asleep to it or unconscious to it. For example, if you were ever in airport security, think about it. Let's say we're that third guy back. What does he think about those people in front of him? These are obstacles, right? If there was not these, why do these people need to go visit their parents? I need to go, and these people are in my way, right? So, and we just subconsciously, traffic is the ultimate example of that. People are just in our way. There's something in our way. So we just reduce people to obstacles. Also, in a more involved sense, let's say we're this friendly Elvis impersonator there with a red collar. Okay, that's us. This other guy moves to town, and he's got like a lei on. He's got these nice like Bono glasses. He's right in front of the sign. Is he doing better than we are? Suddenly that guy becomes a rival, right? Anybody have rivals? Don't put your hands up. But these are people who we sort of feel like are competing for the same space. If they would just get transferred, life would be a lot easier. So we subconsciously just think of people as rivals. Also, let's say that we're rock stars, and all these people are coming to show up and promote our stuff. We could just think, like, look how cool I am. When we count the people, and however many people, that's how cool. These people are just like sort of gems in my crown of greatness. You know, how often are we trying to put a post up? How many likes does it get? All these people are, which is fine, but we all do it. But it's like, okay, these people are sort of like bling for me. You know, there's that one, and then finally, some people we see as a place we can release our frustrations. If you've ever worked in customer service, and you know somebody's mad at the company, and they're just kind of the first person they got on the phone, I need to unload on someone, so it's going to be you. So those are the kinds of ways we unconsciously start to think about people and treat people, but that's not very cool, is it? Because it's not accurate. I mean, that's not what those people, any of those people are. None of us are that one-dimensional. And when we sit down and think about it, we know that. We know that everybody else is having to deal with life just like we are, but how do we remember that? And how do we treat people in a way that's going to honor that reality?